Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the New Renaissance podcast, episode 18. It is today. Another Riverside episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. It's a good one. Guest today, we've got Matt Strong. If you'd like to introduce yourself, mate, thank you so much for taking the time out to come on this episode. And then we'll get straight into the good stuff.
Mate, pleasure for having me on. My name's Matt Strong, online coach, owner of Physique Collective and Acne Antidote. And as we spoke about before, a bit of a mindset nerd. Someone that's really interested in like psychology and mindset side of things. And that's kind of how I get the best out of my clients, out of myself. And that's something I've really dived into. I know you wanted to touch on today. And honestly, when you said you want to get on a podcast and talk mindset and all that sort of stuff, I was excited. So I was like, yep, let's go and do it.
It's mega.
But yeah, certainly, essentially my business is helping coaches, helping people who are probably a little bit more advanced. And I find that often, most of the time, it's how you relate to them, how they can sort of better understand themselves is what gets them elite results. And that's the kind of thing I find myself in. And funny enough, actually, I've got this sat here. You recommended it to me last time. I thought I'd show you, I'd bring it on. The Psycho-Cybernetics, great book. And honestly, before you mentioned it, I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And I started reading it and I was like, man, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really good book. It's probably number one spot for me, still is to this day. I think there's another one that he's wrote in the past, and it's not actually written by Maxwell Maltz. It's by a guy who used to mentor with him, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he worked under him, and he's just basically talking about how you can become the person that you want to be in the future now, instead of obviously waiting to become that person, and that's a quicker way to get there, sort of thing.
I'm going to have to grab that one off you off air. I need another book recommendation. This one was so good. I'm diving into the next one.
Well, we'll start this episode off with another book, mate. Simon Sinek, Start With Why. I thought the best way we could start a podcast is to start with why, and it's kind of what I wanted to touch on with you today. Is do you think people who are striving to achieve like big goals, like the bodybuilder who's competing, the coach who wants to get to £10,000 a month, do you think they actually understand the reason why they're doing these things?
No, that's a great question to start with, and I think a lot of times people start, and obviously this is what Simon mentions in the book, is they kind of start with what, or they start with how, but they never start with like the internal reason. And what you said there is like what people want. They want to win maybe a show, or they want to win, or they want to earn a certain amount of money per month or something like that. And they're focusing on like an outcome-based thing. They're focusing on what it is, but there's never really a deep-rooted, I guess, connection to what their intrinsic desires are. Like, what do you actually want to achieve? And I think when you kind of boil it down, you're like, okay, why do I want to earn that money? Why do I want to get up on stage? And it might not be for the reasons you think. It could be because I love competing and I love, I don't know, the challenge of pushing myself. But it could be actually, and I'm not saying this is the right reason of doing it, but it could be I just want to get some external validation or some external esteem for myself to prove that I am worth something. And obviously there are two different sides of the coin, but both are valid whys in that instance. I'm not saying one's healthy and one isn't, but there are two different reasons. And I think quite often people maybe lack that awareness of why am I doing this in the first place? And especially take a prep or take business and you're trying to really grow that. If you're just aiming for a number, when times are hard, especially in like a bodybuilding prep, you've got to have a pretty good reason. When you're like 4 weeks out, you're starving, you've got super high fatigue, life's a bit shit at that point. If you haven't got a clear, defined understanding why that is you're doing it, I think you're probably going to fall by the wayside, or at least find that very non-enjoyment of that process. And that is something I'd always ask all my clients to try and understand what their reasoning is. And I think we gave an example last time we were on with yourself and Nate, was often you see people that have got a very strong why, and they maybe had a health scare, and they all of a sudden now they've got a reason. They don't want to die, and as reasons go, that's got to be up there. I don't want to die. I want to be around for my kids. That's a very, very strong reason, and everything else can flow downstream of that. But I think unless you've got that to start with, you're always on the back foot.
Yeah, there's a quote, I think it's in the Simon Sinek book, where he says, working hard for something that you don't care about is stress. Working hard for something that you enjoy is called a passion. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people who are working towards something like, let's say you said the bodybuilder who's prepping to go on stage, it takes so much. And if you're trying to grow your business, again, there's so many sleepless nights of trying to create content or getting up early to go to a PT session sort of thing. And sometimes you're thinking, is it really worth it? But if you're actually finding the passion in coaching that client to then get better results, or if you're finding the passion of stepping on stage, that should be your motivation. I think some people get caught up in the motivation being that they've seen somebody else who's living in Dubai, an online coach who's got so much money, or they've seen Chris Bumstead on the Olympia stage and thought, oh yeah, I can look like him. Do you think that's an issue where people perceive their goals based off what other people have achieved?
Yeah, I think it could be very easy to get caught up in what the Joneses are doing. You've seen this all along. Like, I need a bigger house, bigger car. I've got to have a Rolex. I've got all these things. And I think no one's ever stopped. Those sort of people have never stopped and thought, why am I doing that? Because a lot of people, they say they want 10 grand a month, but what they really want is a comfortable life. Do you need 10 grand for that? Or do you need to maybe rein in what you want? Do you really want those things in the first place? And I think when you do a bit of self-exploration, you think, what is it that you actually want? What's the end goal almost? Like, do you want, I don't know, do you want to have a Ferrari? Do you want to have a mansion? Do you want to have all these things? Or do you actually want something a lot less extravagant, a lot less materialistic, but you're just saying, oh, I want 10 grand. You see these lifestyles and you get very caught up in it.
Yeah.
And I was having a chat with some guys the other day, and they were sort of saying, oh, I don't feel like I'm doing very well in life. I was like, compared to what? Because I saw a meme go around, is one that we spoke about. The internet would have you believe that everyone's a millionaire, but only 4% of the UK earn over 100 grand. But if you go on Instagram, you're like, everyone's a millionaire. Everyone's doing well. And that quite clearly is not the case. So you're comparing yourself against, I don't know, anyone. And that can be a very miserable game, because at what point do you stop? Do you say, like, all right, I'm going to compare myself to Elon Musk, or I'm going to compare myself to Jeff Bezos, and unless I'm earning their sort of money, I'm not happy. You're like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous comparison, isn't it? Or unless I look like CBum. Well, sorry, no one's going to look like CBum apart from CBum. Like, where do you draw the line? And that's a very, I don't want to say dangerous, but it almost is, because it's a shortcut to unhappiness. If you're constantly comparing your life to where you want to be. But it's easy to do that. It's easy to jump on Instagram and you see everyone living this curated life that you only see the highlight reel, and you think, why can't I have that? Or is that what you really want? I don't know. You need to have that level of self-reflection to start with, I think.
Yeah, and I think 9 times out of 10, if you are looking at that person on Instagram who's living the extravagant lifestyle, most of the times it can be a lie as well. It's set up on Instagram to look that way to make you like the picture. I think a lot of people can forget that sometimes. Obviously, there's people who maybe living a better life than you, than what you perceive. But again, it's going back to, like you said, the self-reflection of your own morals and values. And I've found when I've set a goal, when the motivation comes intrinsically, there's a lot more purpose behind my preparation leading up to that goal. Whereas if I was to set a goal in the past because potentially there's a coach who has got X amount of clients and I feel like I need to do the same, or there's a coach who's coaching their clients with this app or this training program, I need to do the same, then I just end up not enjoying it because it's not in line with what I want. And then I don't even attract the people that I want. It's the people that the other coaches got. And what would be the first step or the question that you'd potentially prod at someone's direction who potentially is a client who's wanting to compete, or a coach who's wanted to coach a certain way, where they then go and find out what their why is?
I'll give it two different answers. For someone that wants to compete, I would just say, why do you want to? And I'd listen to that response, because I think as coaches, you and I would both be able to say whether that sounds like an authentic answer or not.
Yeah.
If someone just says something, I'm going to create a really ridiculous example, but yeah, I just feel like I need to do it for my coaching business and I want some cool pictures for Instagram. And I'm like, I'd start to really dig into that. When if someone goes, you know what, I really want to push myself, I want to see what I'm capable of achieving, two different things. And I'll talk through it with them, and I'll sort of almost play devil's advocate a little bit. Like, these are the things that you're going to have to suffer with. These are, I guess, the issues you might face along the way. But we can explore that. Whereas when someone's saying, they want a coaching business, I try and get them to like almost future plan that. What does it look like for you running the best business? Who would you be working with? What does that look like? What sort of content do you think you'd be making? And I think when you start looking like that rather than comparison, I like the idea of looking forward. There's since we're talking about books, there's a book called 10x is easier than 2x.
Oh yeah.
And it talks, basically it's a cool business book. I forget the author at the top of my head now. Basically he's talking about if you make a goal which is like 10x bigger than any other goal, let's say coaching, say, I don't know, I want to turn over £1 million a month. Sounds ridiculous. But if you thought about it, you say, how would I do that? And there'd probably be like one way you could do it. And it creates that path through the jungle. It's the same if you want to grow your business. You're like, okay, how does that look? And if you can envisage the end point, you maybe have a path to get there. And it might be doing content in a certain way or acting in a certain way. But you think you're going to have to make that your business. Are you going to be able to do it by copying other people? Is that a business that you're going to be happy with? Does that, when you think forward to that say this business that's going to be really fulfilling for you, how are you acting? And it's probably in an authentic way. It's probably not copying other people. It's probably doing it in your voice, coaching who you want to coach. And I think we all kind of know who we want to work with and the way we want to come across, because it'll feel authentic. It'll feel like the right thing to do. And whenever you act like the reason I get people to think forward is you have to now think in congruence. You have to think, I'm going to act now, how I have to be in the future. If I'm acting completely different to that, I probably need to realign myself and get myself back in line, because otherwise it's probably going to be not the way I want to get to in the end way.
Yeah, there's another Simon Sinek quote which I'll fire at you, mate.
Keep going, keep throwing quotes at me.
A why without a how has a low probability of success. I think that kind of maybe summarizes up what you were trying to say, in the sense that if you're trying to go for something that's externally validated, or somebody else has achieved this and this has give them X life, and then you're trying to do the same as them, you're going to be living the life that they then live. You're not going to be living the life that you're supposed to live. Obviously, you can take inspiration, you can take motivation off people who are doing things that potentially in the same area of education or work that you're wanting to go down, but trying to not just completely put all of your eggs in the basket of, all right, this person's done X amount of work and got to this point, I need to do the exact same. Your path's going to be so different to the people who are around you, because I completely understand what you're saying, and you're going to really enjoy that Psycho-Cybernetics book, because that's similar to what you were saying of kind of putting that bridge between the goal that you want and the steps that you've got to take to get there. Are they in line with the morals and values that you have as a person? I think Robert Greene has mentioned in the past of having two paths. One path is your morals and values that always stays the same. They're the things that you have as non-negotiables, like family, social life, training, whatever that might be. And then the other path, that goes in all the different directions, that maybe tries different things and doesn't enjoy it. It goes through doors and then it comes back out of them. But as long as you've got this first path that's like your roots of the tree that's growing, you can't really go wrong, because then you'll never fall away from the person who you are. And that's why some people may achieve a goal, they might step on stage, and then after it they're like, oh, bodybuilding's not for me. And it's like, well, why did you set the goal in the first place? Or if you become an online coach, why did you actually set that goal in the first place? Do you think a lot of people will go and achieve these things and then look to blame the, say, bodybuilding, the sport as a whole, or if they're a coach, look to blame the clients as a whole, instead of actually looking at themselves internally?
I think that's quite endemic of people in general. And one thing I would always encourage clients to do, friends to do, is something I do myself regularly, is have a lot of internal reflection. And I'm a big believer in absolute accountability. And I've always had this viewpoint of like blame yourself for everything. And I heard Jocko Willink talk about this absolute accountability. And I'd never heard it phrased like that before. And it was always something I kind of had as a viewpoint, but he phrased it so eloquently. I thought I'm going to steal that. Yeah. And what I'd always try and do is, whenever I do something, or I'm going to do something, or I reflect back on something, I look inward and I blame myself entirely for that thing. So you say, I got up on stage, I didn't enjoy it. Well, that was my choice. Maybe I went into it the wrong way. Or I'm living in a manner that's not congruent, as we mentioned before. Well, that's my fault. And I think people are too easy to throw that blame externally on, oh, it was bodybuilding, or it was this business mentor, or it was XYZ. And I feel like you rob yourself of agency by doing that. You take away any ability to alter your path. It's the same way I see people going, I'm going to do a rant on this today because it's fresh in my mind. But when people say, I wish the universe would give me an easier chance, the universe doesn't care about you. And I think what you're doing is you're throwing away your level of agency and accountability in the same way that person's doing that with, it was bodybuilding's fault. You're not taking any agency, any accountability for yourself. But the minute you do that, you can change it. And that's the kind of theme I have with all my clients, is not to be harsh on yourself and speak to yourself negatively, but also you're probably the person to blame, not some like bodybuilding cabal who was against you.
Yeah, and I think when you take control of everything, everything's in your hands. Then, if something does go wrong, at least the good old saying of you've left no stone unturned, so you can you've got no excuse to blame anybody else. And when you do blame, I think, like you mentioned, you give up the sense of accountability and agency. You also give up the complete power for yourself to grow. Yeah. If you went on the bodybuilding stage and you didn't enjoy it, you don't have to blame the whole prep or whatever that you did. If you coach with someone you didn't enjoy, you don't have to blame them. You just accept that, okay, maybe it's not for you. What's the next thing? If you're just constantly in that mindset of just blaming, you'll never actually step up and go to that next step for yourself, sort of thing.
I think it's a very fixed mindset as well. You're just thinking, it's always against me, life's so hard. I think, okay, say it is. Say all those things are true. What else are you going to do? What's next? And how can I take control of this? And something I'll never do is blame my circumstances, because ultimately it was likely my fault. Like, I got a speeding ticket the other day, and someone goes, "Are you annoyed about that?" And I was like, "No," because it's entirely my fault. Like, I'm an idiot. Like, I got caught speeding. Fair enough. Yeah, it was obviously my fault. And I'm laughing about it because I was like, I can be annoyed that I've done something that is annoying, but at the same time, it's no one's fault but my own. I can't be like, this guy on this pesky police officer with a speed gun. Oh, he got me because I was going over the limit. Like, it's my fault. So whose fault is it? Mine.
Yeah. And do you think that's something that people should apply into business training a lot more, like in the way that the world's going at the minute? Do you think a lot of people are starting to just blame other things instead of taking more responsibility?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's very much a snowflake generation, it seems like we're in. And I don't even want to say, if it was a bit harsh, even say generation. I think it's just the nature of people is we don't like taking accountability. But the one thing I've noticed, certainly within my friendship group, and obviously there's definitely a survivorship bias here because all my friends do it as well. The more I've taken control of and taken accountability and blame myself, let's use that phrase, and the more I see my friends do that, the more they've elevated themselves through life. They've achieved more, done more, become more, and whatever metric you want to look at, happiness, wealth, physique, status, whatever metric you want to look at, everything's gone up that way. So I think there's certainly something to say for having that level of accountability, and it does go contrary to what the world is doing, where everyone seems to just, blame this. We've got a cancel culture. We've got this, that, and the other. And I don't really watch the news or anything like that. But anytime I sort of look on Instagram, it's this person's fault and this person's fault, and that robs me of agency. Maybe it is, right? Maybe it is their fault, but doesn't help me. What can I do? How can I get better? And if I get better, then I'm probably solving some measure of the situation. And I think more people, if they took that on board, would probably achieve a lot more in their life and feel less like a piece of wood getting dragged downstream. They'd actually be able to take control of their life.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how you said that obviously the people around you who you've seen successful and kind of increasing in all the areas of their life that they want to are all the ones who always take full responsibility and accountability for themselves. And you've probably got the person who blames everybody who's listening thinking, he's had it so lucky. They've just been able to do this and I've not. How would you go about not taking control of too much? Because there may be somebody who's listening. I know there's quite a couple of people who are in the mindset of trying to optimize for business, optimize for the physique, but sometimes things happen and you've got no control. Where does the line get drawn where it's like you can't blame yourself for that?
I think there's a level of there's two kind of different concepts. One is the accountability and one is the control. And I think they can operate separately. So the accountability is just saying this is on me. This is, if I don't get to where I want to be, this is on me. And the other side is the control. And there's going to be a lot of elements which are not in your control. There's going to be the weather. There's going to be if you, let's say, got a chronic illness. Let's say if you I'm trying to think. There's a power cut. Load of things can be outside of your control. So what can you do? You can say, essentially with the stoicism, you go, what's under my control, what isn't? I can take control of the things that are under my control to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Then you have to be honest with yourself and say, what could I do better? So I'll give you an example. How many times have you seen a client, they say, oh, I got caught short today with some meetings, so I had a cheeseburger. You're like, well, okay, something happened outside of your control, but did you do the action that's going to lead you towards your goal or further away from it? You picked one that's going to lead you further away from it. You have to put your hand up and admit that. You have to take the accountability for that thing. So I think there's an element of you could relinquish control in some areas, but still have accountability in others. And then the other side of it is that you get the person, I think you asked, what about if someone's trying to maximise their physique, maximise their business? Again, a conversation with yourself is saying, is that reasonable to expect that?
Yeah.
So let's say I'm trying to make an example. Say you're trying to 10x your business in 1 year and you're trying to become an IFBB pro. You say, is that realistic? It might well not be, okay? So what I would do, instead of saying I'm going to achieve these goals, is saying I'm going to act in accordance like a business owner, I'm going to act in accordance like a pro, and I'm going to see what happens. Then at some point, I'm going to constantly review and see, is this realistically going to happen? Do I need to hold one, push the other, or accept that because I can't do both at the same time? Maybe I can, maybe I'm a freak, right? But the likelihood is something is going to give. And on those situations, again, the accountability and honesty with yourself has to come paramount, because it'd be very easy to say, oh, I just haven't got time. But you do have time, but you can't also achieve everything you want to achieve. Like, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I wanted to be a pro rugby player when I was a kid. Guess what? None of those things have happened because of one reason or another. Probably because I'm not good enough to be either of those things. But you can't do everything you set out to do necessarily. Maybe you can, but I think there's a level of control and accountability which I think they can coexist, and you need to kind of bounce off the other.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, a very good example at the start with the guy who's had that last minute meeting, then he's gone for the cheeseburger. If his goal was to get in shape, he's got to have that mindset that he has to control what he can, not what he can't. If you're late for work or something's happened last minute that's completely out of your control, you've then got to go back to what's your current goal at the minute, what are your values and morals, what is that person that you said you was going to be, that you said you was going to get to in 6 months' time? Are you going to go to the shop and go and get a pack of chicken breast and a pack of wraps and some salad and make your own meal? Or are you going to go to get a cheeseburger and just, again, blame the circumstances of the universe when realistically you have complete control over what you could have done to make the best possible decision?
100%.
Do you think that when it comes to training, because I know that you're obviously an online coach as well, for those who are watching and heard the introduction at the start, do you think a lot of people can have that mindset when it comes to the training program as well? In a sense that, say, when we spoke about at the start, where you're starting with your why, you understand the reasons why you're doing things. Can somebody look to, let's say, try and just do a training program that they've seen on TikTok, on Instagram, just because somebody who's got abs, somebody who's got the top off, looks good in that position, whereas when they're watching that thing on TikTok, they think they can look like that, and realistically, we probably both know it's probably not the best program for them.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it depends where they are in that journey. If someone's just starting and they want to train, anything's going to work.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I'll just go on a segue here, like just a slight tangent. People say, oh, what do you think about CrossFit? I think CrossFit's great. Is it the best for gaining muscle? Exclusively, no. But if it's getting you into training, fantastic. And that TikTok workout might be getting you into training, fantastic. But like with anything, there's going to be a better way of doing it potentially. And then you look at where you are in that hierarchy, you say, do I need more? Do I want more? Or am I just happy doing this? And I have this conversation with clients all the time. Someone says, I don't know, they'll come to me and say, I want to be a pro. I go, are you willing to do what it takes to be a pro? Because you're not going to love every minute of this. Yeah. And then we might change their training. They might be doing a certain split. We change their training and they say, I just want to have fun with training. We're like, well, okay, that's fine. But do you want fun or do you want to be a pro? Because there's something, it's not going to be fun all the time. Like, depends what your definition of fun is as well. My definition of fun is winning. So that to me is a challenge and to win. Someone else might be, I just want to go and fling around some weights with my mates. If that, in that case, TikTok workout, absolutely, crack on. But I think when you again, it comes back to that accountability. Is that are you going to get the best results out of this thing, or are you just going to say I want to train? They're completely different things. And I don't want to ever sit and berate someone for training, because I think the world of weightlifting and fitness and bodybuilding is niche enough. We don't need to argue amongst each other with like these silly internet beefs that happen. Like people go, "Oh, it's not the best training program." Okay, for what? Like again, if they're just trying to train a little bit, crack on. Of course, are there more optimal, quote unquote? Everyone loves the word optimal. Are there more optimal ways to do it? Yeah, but if someone wants to go and train, get in the gym, that's their kind of entry into it. I have no issues with that whatsoever. The only time I would ever have a problem is the initial content creator trying to make money off someone's naivety or anything like that.
Yeah, and like when you mentioned that, say the person who's wanting to go and be a pro, like say bodybuilding, and this can apply to any sport that's out there, the athlete who wants to go and be a professional footballer, who starts training as much as they can do, goes into the academy, but then they realise they don't enjoy it, or they just decide, oh, I just want to enjoy training, I can still be a pro, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that just comes from them just being ignorant to what it actually takes to being at that elite level? I think a lot of people can, and I don't know if this is just the way that I perceive Instagram and TikTok, but a lot of people can have this work-life balance mindset, but then also at the same time think that they can become the best possible athlete in X, Y, and Z, when realistically you'd have to dedicate so much of your time to that one thing to just become the top 10% of a man, the top 1%.
I think you've got to find something that you truly have a passion. So I think excellence comes from having ability and passion, and you kind of intertwine the two. And how many PTs do you? I always go on tangents. So I'll bring it back round.
No, it's good.
Oftentimes you see a lot of PTs that get into being a PT because they love training, and they think, love training, I'm going to make money out of this. Then they realise all the business elements and all the other bits, and the fact that you've got to sell and all these other things. They go, shit, I don't like being a PT. I just want to go back to training. That's completely fine.
Yeah.
Maybe you had to experience that to do the same thing. Same for that guy who went into the academy and maybe didn't start to enjoy it because it became a bit too serious.
Yeah.
I get it. I completely understand that. You need to find where your kind of purpose meets your passion. And there is, what's that Japanese saying? It's like ikigai, is it?
I think it might be Ikayo. I feel like I know what you mean.
Where your passion meets your purpose. There's a thing there. And I think that will be what it is there.
Yeah.
But also I think people kind of maybe, they look at it like a burden. And I'll go through a conversation I had with a client this morning. He's becoming he's basically become an entrepreneur, started his own business. And this is someone whose skew of kind of his goals was very much physique orientated, and he's moved towards business orientated. And he said to me, I feel like I'm just losing the passion for training. I don't really know why I'm doing it anymore. And it just feels like a bit of a chore. And I said, I get it. You're focusing more on one area of life. And people are very binary in the way they think. I said, well, just think for a minute that you had a car crash and you could no longer walk. I bet you'd look back and go, fuck, I really miss training. So you're kind of just taking it for granted because it's there, and you're viewing it like a burden. Well, if you flip your perception of that thing to actually, fuck it, I'm so lucky to be doing this thing, all of a sudden it looks very different. So I think whenever you get this thing that you're doing, it could be sports, it could be business, and you start to view it like a burden, how would you feel about it when it wasn't there? If you couldn't no longer do that thing, I bet you'd fucking miss it. So oftentimes I believe it's just a perception thing. Now that might not be the case. You might have truly fallen out of love with it and you're like, fuck this off, I never want to do it again. But most of the time I think it's because you become maybe a little bit jaded. You're almost seen it because you've done it so often. Maybe you just need to refresh your perception of that. And I bet you'd be going, oh my God. Because I've got another client who just had a really random leg accident. He was on holiday and someone jumped down the stairs and broke his leg, basically. Someone jumped on him. He didn't jump down the stairs. He's not that much of an idiot. And he's like, I fucking missed the gym so much. And I was like, imagine that just happened to you, how much you miss training. And I think people kind of maybe lose sight of what they've got a little bit.
Yeah, I've been reading a little bit recently, and I can't remember where it was. I feel like I was watching a podcast with a guy talking, and then he wrote an article about it, and it was about like reframing your mindset. I feel like it's similar of like, if you're on a path towards achieving a goal. I know that I've had it in the past where I've been dieting for like a photo shoot, or clients have been dieting and you've been speaking to them and like, oh, I just don't want to do this cardio. Kind of stepping back and thinking, why am I doing this cardio? Which relates back to like the start with why of I'm doing this cardio so then I look absolutely amazing at the end of my diet. And obviously if your goal is crystal clear and you know that that's what you want, trying to find in that little bit of enjoyment, because at the end of the day, it's not fun. Like going on the Stairmaster for 30 minutes is like the least of enjoyable tasks. But if you can start to reframe in your mind that it's going to serve its purpose in 6 weeks, 12 weeks, then you can find that little bit more enjoyment when you're doing it.
I think you can reframe anything, and I think that's such a powerful tool. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
So I coach a lot of coaches, and I mentor a few, and they sort of say, oh, this client's really pissing me off. They keep asking the same questions. And I was like, good. They're like, what do you mean? I said, if your clients didn't ask you any questions, you wouldn't have a fucking job. So if they got it right every single time, you'd be out of a job. None of us would be able to coach, because you'd get people going, yeah, know what I'm doing, mate, job done. Yeah. The fact that they struggle, the fact they've got questions, the fact that they have issues is the reason you're making money. So whenever someone messages you and say, I've got this question, instead of going, oh, for fuck's sake, well, that's what people do. You're like, awesome, opportunity. I want an opportunity to upskill that person, look at a different way. In the same way that you said, I don't like doing cardio. I get it. I'm literally looking at this exercise bike next to me, Dylan. I can see it, and I fucking hate doing cardio. Always have, always will, and I hate it. But I tell myself it's another step to building a block of the best version of me. Yeah. So instead of viewing it as a negative, like I don't want to do this thing, I go, right, I'm going to do the hard thing, because in like a parallel universe, the Matt that didn't do that is a little bitch. Yeah. So I'm going to do that. And I just reframe it to be like a positive. And I wish that worked all the time with everything, because sometimes you're like, oh, fuck off, I'm not doing the thing. I'm not a robot. But I think the more you can reframe any negative into a positive, like again, I talked about the guy who broke his leg. We were chatting earlier, he's a bit down, obviously. And I said to him, but there's some real positives you can take from this. You're staying with your parents who are looking after you. This is time that you wouldn't otherwise get. So whenever they, hopefully in many, many years, they're going to pass away, you'll look back on this time and be like, I'm so lucky I had that time. And when you get back in the gym, you're going to be like, fuck, I'm never going to take this for granted again. And you're going to use this to build up mental resilience. Because when anything else happens, you go, I've got through this, so I know I'll be okay. Yeah. So whilst there's shit stuff that happens, you can always use that to, I guess, view it and create a life and create an example for yourself of a positive experience you can take from it.
Yeah, 100%. And like you've spoken about with yourself doing the cardio there, and a question I definitely want to ask you based off that is like how you're looking at that and reframing it now that you're going to become the best possible version of yourself. What is the driving force? What is your why behind that? Because I know that some people who are listening, I've spoken to clients in the past, and let's say it comes to them doing the cardio and they just say to themselves, oh, well, why don't I just sit at home and drink loads of beer and eat Doritos and watch Netflix? Why don't I just do that? Because I enjoy that. What's the driving force behind you not doing that and getting on that spin bike and doing the cardio?
That is a great question. It's one, I guess, I don't struggle with the answer, but when you try and put it out, it's a difficult one to try and verbalise. So I'll do my best. So it can be very easy to be nihilistic with these things, to sit there and say, we're all going to die, so what's the fucking point? Right? You could be as nihilistic as that if you wanted to. And I get it. Why not just sit at home, play video games, eat pizza, don't work, because that's going to happen anyway. And I think, well, we've all got an end point in time. We're all going to die. Right? And I like knowing that, because it gives us agency. Again, I'm a big believer in agency, like doing something. So you're going to get to the end of your life at one point, and let's say you're there, and you've got two parallel universes. You've got one where you're on your deathbed and you're, let's say, 80, 90, you're surrounded by your family, and you're going to have a moment where you look back on your life and say, that was fucking good, that was really good. I did this, I did that, and you can be proud of yourself. And you know that you had enjoyment and struggle and purpose and struggle along the way. And then you've got the other version of you on their own, no one around them, going, I fucking wasted that. And you're going to know in that moment if your life went the way you wanted it to. It's going to be hard, and you see a lot of memes on this, it's going to be hard either way. It's hard being overweight, it's hard doing exercise. It's hard being poor, it's hard working hard to do well. But there's purpose in struggle, and there's something beautiful in struggle as well. So for me, I just want to make sure that I'm living in accordance. When I get to the end of my life, I can look back and say, that was fucking good. And I regularly look back on my life and go, I've done everything I wanted to do. And that's because I've lived in a way that I'm both proud of and that I'm also always trying to do more.
Yeah.
And that's kind of obviously quite a deep one, but I think when it comes to internal reasons, it's why would I not want to be my best if I could? And I'm not saying I'm trying to be better than anyone else. I'm not saying I'm trying to be a millionaire. I'm not trying to say I'm trying to do anything like that. It's I want to try and be the best me I can be as like a holistic version, the best in business, the best partner, the best friend, the best family member, the best whatever it is that I can possibly be. Now, you can't be everything. I know that.
Yeah.
But at least I can go into life with that purpose. And part of that as well is accepting that life is hard, but if that's the price to pay to be the best version of me, then that's what you got to do. And it's not going to get any fucking easier if you just lie back and let life walk over you.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think sometimes people can get caught up into the mindset of either being too ignorant to the point where they think, I just want to sit on the couch and just accept I'm going to die anyway. Or they can be on the other end of the TikTok spectrum with David Goggins, where they think that they have to suffer all the time. When if they're suffering all the time, it's probably not the best for them. But I think, like we mentioned at the start, figuring out your why. If you can say to yourself and accept that at some point we are all going to tap out of this game called life, what do I want to be before, obviously, I pass away? Do I want to have lived a life that I've enjoyed? And then that's when you start bridging that gap between your why and where you currently are. And that's when you can start to figure out what it is you actually want and start to find your purpose. He speaks about that, Ryan Holiday, in Discipline is Destiny, of how the discipline, or it might be Jocko Willink, where you mentioned before, whereas discipline is freedom.
I completely agree. And going about Goggins, like people like to meme Goggins because honestly, he's fucking hilarious. But I bet he fucking loves it.
Yeah.
I bet, like, to him, he wakes up and he's like, yes, I love this. Now, my version of fun is not his version of fun, right? But he's built a life doing it for him, which is the life that he's going to look back on and go, I'm fucking proud of that. That might look completely different to me, to you, to anyone else. But you could look back and it could be, I've brought up 4 kids and I've been the best dad ever, and I'm like, I've given them all the opportunity in the world. That to you could be the one. To someone else, it could be, I want to be the best rugby player or best football player in the world. Cool. It doesn't mean we've got to have the same thing, but I've never seen anyone who's gone through life being like, I'm so glad I spent all that time getting fat and playing video games. I've never seen it. Maybe that's the people I hang around with, and thank God.
Ryan Holiday, he mentions it in his book as well. He says that no one's ate the way to happiness. No one's ate and drank the way to happiness.
No, I don't believe that they are. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You need struggle, and I don't think you need to make life purposefully hard, as in I'm going to go and live in a tent and throw away all my worldly possessions. That doesn't sound like a great deal to me. But also understanding everyone's got a struggle, and that's part of the fun, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest issues that people can have, is understanding how much they need to struggle, because you've got this weird like bell curve shaped graph of people who want to struggle like David Goggins every single day. They're not good enough. Yeah. They're constantly giving themselves negative self-talk. And then you've got the other person who's thinking, well, what's the point in doing that? I might as well just do nothing. And it's trying to figure out where you want to put yourself on that spectrum to when you get to the end of your life, where it's like, oh no, I've done every single thing that I wanted to do. I'm happy and I've not got no regrets.
That's it. I mean, most people are, by definition, going to be average. If you look at your Gaussian distribution, like you say, your bell curve, most of us are going to be pretty much in the middle. But if I can move myself a little bit more towards better, I'm probably going to be all right. Like that, I'm never going to be anything special. And I think most people get like disheartened by that, but that's also fine. Because usually when someone's special in something, they have to give up a lot of something else. If I can just be like higher in a certain elements, like friends, family, experiences, fitness, business, I can do that a little bit above average.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a very, very, very good life.
And you figuring out that those are the areas that you want to be improving on, is that something that's come with time, or is that you've sat down and asked yourself internally, what are the things I want to prioritize?
What I do at the end of every year is I do a little review on myself, and I look at this like these pillars, and I look at it. It's friends, family, relationships, physical, finances, and hobbies. And I sort of say, like, where do I want to be? Like next year, where would I like to be? Because obviously those goals are going to change, right? I haven't got a partner, therefore I haven't got kids, anything like that. Now, if I met someone, that may change. So that might then change my skew of what I want moving forward, right? But I think you can always look a little bit ahead. I don't like 5-year plans, I don't like 10-year plans, but you can sort of look ahead a little bit and say, are my goals changing? So, like, for example, my physique goals as I've got older have changed a little bit. My goals in life have changed a little bit, and they've become a little bit less, I want to be the biggest fuck, and like all that sort of stuff. I've kind of toned that down over time. So your goals can change, but I think having some form of review process where you're maybe actively going through and examining your own thoughts, and then saying like, how far am I away from where I want to be? And that isn't to say like that's going to make me happy, but that's what I would like to be doing in a sense, because I think it can be very dangerous to sit there and say, I'll be happy when X. Yeah, no, you won't. You won't be happy. You're not happy now. Like, so try and always cultivate happiness. But think, for example, in myself, I go, I'd like a bigger house. Not because I want a bigger house for a bigger house's sake, because of various things that would offer my life. That would be a nice thing to have. So financially, I want to make sure this, and this is in place to allow me to do this downstream thing, which would add value to my life. Fantastic. Yeah. So you can have a goal in that, and then you could work where that looks like in terms of your life balance.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to strategize and rationalize things, because a lot of people as well can have the mindset that say they want the bigger house next year, like you just mentioned. They can just like visualize and this thing will just come true. But I like the way how you mentioned that you set that goal, you understood the reasons behind that goal, and then it was like, right, these are the steps now that I've got to take, and then it's holding yourself accountable to those steps moving forwards.
Well, it's the one reason I don't really like manifestation. I do and I don't. Yeah. Like you hear, like, I've read The Secret and I'm manifesting. Like, cool. Like I see people. I laugh with some of my friends. They're like, I want to meet this amazing guy. And one of my friends, I won't name her. She's like, I want to meet this amazing guy. I was like, well, you're manifesting this thing, but you're sat at home. You're not going out. You're not on dating apps. How are you going to make this happen? Like, you're manifesting it, but you've got no agency to make it happen. So I think I use that as a bit of a tongue-in-cheek example, but the point being is if you can visualize what you want, and then you can actually think, well, now what do I need to do to get there? Like, actually put some strategy in place to get there. You've got I can perceive myself having this thing, and now I know what it looks like to get there. I can marry the two. I haven't just got this manifestation without any agency behind it.
Yeah, I try and describe, and I've spoken to this before with Nathan, like manifestation's almost like the supplement, because you might have a lad who's scrolling on TikTok and Instagram, and then this supplement comes up on how to boost your testosterone. And previously he was going out on the weekend, staying up dead late. And then he goes, right, I'm going to buy this supplement. I'm going to start getting up early, getting 8 hours sleep, training hard, drinking water, eating the right food. He's like, this supplement has changed my life. But when in reality, he's just completely changed his whole life.
Changed his life. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you believe you can get it, you believe you can go and get something, then is that manifestation, or is that just you forcing that thing into existence by your actions as well?
Yeah, 100%. And just before we wrap up this episode, mate, there's another question I wanted to ask you about training. When we were speaking about, obviously, the lad who's going on TikTok and he's just trying to find that quick training program because he's new to the gym. Do you think on the other end of that spectrum, sometimes people can try and optimize for the best possible training split when realistically they need to kind of just not stress about it too much?
Yeah, I think there's a very big danger in any aspect of life of trying to over-optimize. And with the over-optimization, there's a level of optimization where it's beneficial, and there's a level where it's just going to stress you out and actually get detrimental performance. It's like an inverted U. There's like a point where like more does more, but then it tips off the edge. Yeah. You see this with sleep's a great example of this. People go, right, I'm going to get my sleep hygiene fucking nailed. I'm going to track it. I'm going to get my sleep tracker out. I'm going to get my Oura Ring, whatever it looks like. And the more they focus on the sleep, it gets to a point, it gets worse. And they're just
that is me.
There you go.
I was going to hold hand up and say that's me.
It happens.
I bought the Oura Ring and did the same thing.
Yeah, you try and over-optimize something and then see a detriment to it. And you see this all the time with people with morning routines. You've got this morning routine and it's got to be like this. Like, I go and do my morning walks, I do a meditation, I do my breath work, I do my journaling, I have an ice plunge, I get my fucking bulletproof coffee, and then I sit down, I make an Eisenhower matrix, and then, fuck me, you spend 2 hours, and then you go, and then you think, oh fuck, I'm really stressed because I've done all these things, I've got so much work backed up. You tried to over-optimize to get an outcome we didn't need to. And I think it's so easy to do that in life. Whereas if you just I like to think about what gives me the biggest ROI. So within training, what gives me the biggest ROI with return on investment? So it's probably going to be, well, it's not probably, it is going to be, am I training hard enough? Am I training with great execution? Am I doing sufficient volume across the course of the week? Is my frequency okay? Have I got good equipment, all that other stuff? But if all you did was say, I'm going to train 3 times a week, train really fucking hard with great execution, see what you get from that. You're probably going to get some good results. And then you can start to, once you've got into it a little bit, then start to optimize. But how many times as a coach do you see it when people say, I'm just going to try my own for a bit?
Yeah.
Why? Like, oh, I just want to make sure I get started to start. Okay, I'm going to help you cut the gap out. So when you start something, there's a level of yes, I want to get optimized quick, but then there's going to be a gap where it's well, now you need to earn the right to do it. So yeah, I'm trying to think of another example. It's like when you get into business, you don't just start going, right, I'm going to work 100-hour weeks. Right, maybe I just do 40 hours, and then I have to do a bit more. Maybe I have to do a bit more. You don't just jump in at the deep end and hope you can swim. You just go, let's do a minimum, see what I get from that. But then also, with the optimization, I think you need to look at it. It's a law of diminishing returns. There's going to be a point which every unit of increased effort is minimal return. And you go for any more effort, is it worth putting any more in? If you're going to be Mr. Olympia, if it's 0.1%, yeah, probably worth it. But if it's just because you want to go out and look good naked, if you put an extra 20% in, you're getting 2% out. It's probably not worth it in terms of time and effort. And then that optimization can actually ruin your life rather than benefit it.
I really like the term that you said, return on investment. I've never even really thought about framing it that way. For the lad who's potentially waking up and trying to get sunlight in their eyes first thing in the morning, but it's wasting 15 minutes of the morning routine for them to then get to the gym before work. And that's eating away, causing those sessions to now be 30 minutes instead of 45, which means that the way that they warm up isn't as good. So then they're not pushing as hard in the gym. It's kind of like you've just wasted this much time in the morning for the actual thing that's going to provide you the most feedback, what you need at the moment in time.
I try and look at everything through that lens of return on investment. And obviously, not everything. I don't look at my mum and dad and be like, what's your ROI? But at the same time, I look at for a lot of things like business, training, all that. What's the biggest return on investment for that, in that for me? And if I can nail that bit down, decide, okay, what's the next thing I can give? And Pareto's law is a great example of that. For anyone listening, Pareto's law is, it's a sales thing, basically. You get 80% of your results from 20% of your effort. Not quite true, but it's for some reason, not necessarily for some reason, it is true for a lot of things. So, for example, in nutrition, if you just hit your calories and your protein, you're probably getting a large proportion of your results from that. With training, train hard enough with good technique, you're probably getting most of it out of that, right? If you get 7 hours sleep, you're probably getting most of it from that. You don't need to try and overanalyze. Then you say, can I add bits on top of that? When can I add? And what part is it starting to slip over that bit of where it's becoming detrimental? That's probably the bit for me. And obviously everyone's got different goals, whether it's going to sit. That's where you have to look at it individually rather than just blanket statement, which is why it's dangerous to get a training plan or something off TikTok or listen to business advice from someone like, as much as I love him, Alex Hormozi, I don't think most people would be able to survive his work schedule.
Yeah, and again, it's going back to right at the start, that's Alex Hormozi's life, not yours.
100%. Would you want his life? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, are you actually Alex Hormozi right now, or are you trying to be Alex Hormozi 10 years ago? Because I can imagine he wasn't living the life that he was living then that he was when he first started.
Yeah, you're seeing the tip of the iceberg. You didn't see the fucking 10 years of graph that you had to do to get there.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to mention, another quote, is that perfectionism sounds like paralysis. I think that kind of summarizes what you were trying to say with the return on investment of how some people try and optimize for so many different things to the point where they're just wasting too much time. And say if they was just trying to get content out for the business that they're trying to launch, if they actually just put some content out there instead of trying to have it being the best possible content in the world, and compared to someone like Alex Hormozi, they probably get more return on investment as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of time, going back to clients as well, how many times have you heard a client saying, I'm 100% on nothing? I was like, well, you're probably going to be nothing most of the time, unfortunately. because you think it has to be this perfect thing to put out. And I look back at the content I produced when I started, I'm like, fucking hell, it's pretty awkward watching. But you know what? I've learned from it. You plan, you execute, and you review. And if you're only trying to wait till it's perfect, you'll never get any chance to actually execute and review. And like with any system, the more reps you get on something, the more chance you have to review it and get better. But if you're only going to try and wait till you start, and again, I'll go back to my mentorship. So a couple of guys mentor, and they want to start coaching, and they're sort of stockpiling all this knowledge in their head. And one of them, I said, when are you launching? When are you going to launch your coaching? And he said, I'm going to launch in the new year. I said, why aren't you launching now? And he goes, I'm not ready. And I was like, are you going to be ready in the new year, are you? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay, so the minute you open your doors, are you going to get clients? No. Right. How long do you think it's going to take you to get clients? Maybe 3 months. What, like now? As if you started now, maybe you'd get there. He's like, I don't feel ready. And I was like, I'm going to let you into a little secret. You probably never will feel like you're ready to start. Yeah. You just got to fucking start. That's like saying, I don't want to learn to drive because I'm not ready to drive. Yeah, because you're learning to fucking drive. So you'll be ready later down the line. But right now you need to learn the skills. And the only way you're going to learn the skills is by doing the thing. And it's the same with anything. You could take nutrition. I'm not sure if I'm ready to track. Well, try and then get better at it. Training, I'm a bit scared to start. Just start and see what happens. Business, I'm scared to put out content. It's going to be shit. Probably. But the only way to get better is to get reps and to get experience. And I say, anyone, you go back and look at their first thing, what are you going to expect to be an expert when you start? How arrogant is that? I thought the first time I played basketball, I'd be as good as Michael Jordan. What? Like, are you mental? Of course you're not going to be. You're probably going to be pretty shit. But if you put time in, you'll get better. And that's completely fine. And I think anyone that goes into it thinking, I'm trying to be this like perfection. No one is.
Yeah, mate. Thank you so much. Honestly, you've just made me reminisce on one of the first episodes that I filmed for this podcast, and the amount of times I said and butted in when the guest was trying to speak. And that, I think what you just said there, I think a lot of people can take who are trying to strive for a better business, trying to obviously step on stage for the first time, or trying to push whatever they're doing, fitness, physique goals. Just actually start, but figure out the reasons why you're doing that thing before you actually start looking to blame other people.
And I would also say, just a final note, is don't let fear stop you, because this is going to sound really fucking morbid, Dylan, so bear with me. I've got a little thing on my desk, right? And it says Memento Mori, which is a stoicism thing, meaning I know that I will die. And essentially it shows me how, if I was to live to 80, how many years left of my life I've got to live. And I'm getting old, mate. Look, grey's coming through. I'm like halfway through my life at this point. And I think people think they're going to live forever. And they go, I'll do it next week, or start next month, or do this. You might never get the chance. So people are often putting off the career change. They're putting off the business venture. They're putting off the holiday. They're putting off I'm going to ask this guy or this girl out, or whatever it may be. Like they feel like they're going to get another chance. You might not get another chance. I'm like, say, 37. I've probably got 30, 40 summers, winters, autumns, and springs left. It's not a lot of fucking time when you put it like that. So whenever you're scared of something, completely normal thing, like completely normal feeling, but don't let that fucking stop you, because it's so easy to think about, it needs to be perfect, but it's the fear of failure or fear of whatever that's holding people back. And I spoke to one of my friends the other day, and she's looking at starting this business, and she's like, I'm scared of posting stuff on Instagram. I was like, I get it. I completely get it. No one wants to fail. No one wants to do. But let me ask you two questions. If you fail, where are you going to be? She goes, right here. I was like, right. But you're going to also have the skills that you learnt along the way and some experience. So you're not going to be in the same place. You're slightly better off. Are you in a bad place now? No. And write down a list of people that you need to validate you and your decisions. How long would that list be? And she's like, 2 people. I was like, so fuck everyone else. Like, if you're scared of what anyone else thinks, fuck them. Because they don't really matter. Like, they obviously, none of us want to get criticised, and I'm sure you don't. I don't really like being criticised, but it's part of the course. And I'll leave you with a final quote, because I know we both love them.
Yes.
And this is to talk about fear, is if you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. And I found that really powerful, because I'm like, do you want to be nothing? I don't.
Yeah, 100%.
that is often the thing that's stopping a lot of people, is the thought what other people are going to say. If you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing, and that fucking terrifies me.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever seen like the memes on Instagram and stuff where it's like you zoom out and you zoom out and you zoom out and you zoom out, and then it's just like your town, your city, your country, the world, and then the universe, and it's like you're literally nothing anyway, like you just said. And if you're literally going to be, you might as well have an impact on someone. If you post a piece of content and it reaches 5 views and one person likes it, at least one person likes it. If you get criticism, does it really matter? Can you learn from that and then next time get even better?
Well, there's going to be negative people in the world, isn't there? Like you could save a fucking kitten from a burning building and someone would call you a show-off prick. So like, I wouldn't worry too much about what other people think.
100%. Well, thank you so much, mate. If people were looking to find where you're at, socials, all those good things, where would they go?
So I'm actually an online coach and talk about other things just than psychology and mindset. But obviously a big part of what I do is this. So you find me at Matt_Physique Collective. My business is Physique Collective, which is an online education platform for people interested in physique development. So that's Physique Collective. That's also on Instagram at Physique Collective or physiquecollective.com. And that's really it. I mean, I coach coaches, I offer mentorship to coaches, and I basically help coaches become better people physically, mentally, and from a business perspective. So that's me, mate. And honestly, thank you so much for having me on. It's lovely to chat with like-minded people, especially about something I'm so passionate about. And I can tell you are as well. And honestly, man, I could sit here and talk for hours.
I was thinking that as well, mate. I'm watching the timer and I'm thinking I try and keep these just below an hour, but I'm thinking I could just go on and on and on. Maybe one day when people actually listen to the full episode. So I know a lot of people listen, but I always think to myself, I don't want to give too much to the point where people just switch off halfway through.
All right, honestly, pleasure having me on. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and thank you for talking about, like I say, something so passionate. If you can tell me that other book link from the, you said the one from Psycho Cybernetics, I'll be fascinated.
Yeah, I will do my best to find that. It might actually be in the back of the book, but I think it may be someone to do with Maxwell Maltz, who he used to mentor, and I'll have a look for it. 100%.
Mate. Thank you very much.
No worries at all. And for everyone who's listening, please like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, and we will see you in the next one.